Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Swiss bank Amina introduces custody trading with Ripple's RLUSD stablecoin. So this is even more good news for XRP holders. It just won't stop. I'll tell you this, ever since the election, which, you know, that's one of the many things that's putting XRP on an even playing field. Ever since that happened, the world's been responding, and there's been substantially increased adoption of XRP and the XRP ledger. This is just one more thing. And I will just note, if you're an XRP holder, a primary reason this is great for you is it ensures the long-term viability of XRP and the XRP ledger, because for every single transaction of RLUSD that occurs on the XRP ledger, XRP is required. That's the way it's coded. It's literally required to function as a gas token. XRP does. And knowing that XRP must be there, I think investors coming into the space, as they see that RLUSD continues to get adopted and it just becomes a staple in the world of crypto, people are going to have confidence throwing money into XRP specifically because it does stuff. And that's just one of the many things that it does. We also have this, though. Ripple's legal saga is over, but with its stablecoin pivot, where does XRP go? Now, this comes from Unchained, which Laura Shin founded. And the guy that wrote this is Stephen Ehrlich. These people are some of the greatest sufferers of the affliction known as XRP derangement syndrome that exists. They suffer the greatest. So if there's ever any sort of medication that comes out, perhaps an ointment, please get it to them first so that they can cure this affliction. They irrationally despise XRP, and it's obvious. And they're so wrong about everything they say about it. It's hilariously the case, the degree to which they're wrong. So we'll get into this as well. But the thrust of the story is, why do you even need XRP if there's a stable coin RLUSD? Why do you even need it? Why do you even need it? Oh, if there's stable coins, which is a thing different than a decentralized cryptocurrency, then why do you need the decentralized cryptocurrency, which is a completely different animal? Huh? Oh, that's the thing? That's the talking point now? We're going back to that shit? But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. Swiss crypto-focused bank Amina Bank started offering clients services with Ripple USD. That's RLUSD, of course, a stablecoin. Ripple's recently launched stablecoin pegged to the US dollar on Thursday. The firm has claimed the bragging rights of becoming the first globally operating bank to support RLUSD, according to a press release shared with CoinDesk. The bank said it would initially provide custody and trading for RLUSD, targeting institutional clients and professional investors seeking compliant stablecoins. The bank plans to expand services with the token in the coming months. The move comes as stablecoins are increasingly becoming part of financial systems and payments, with jurisdictions putting rules in place to regulate the asset class. Stablecoins are a $250 billion asset class and a rapidly growing group of cryptocurrencies, with their prices pegged predominantly fiat currencies like the US dollar. Ripple's RLUSD, backed by US Treasuries and regulated by the New York Department of Financial Services, has a $430 million supply. Amina said it aims to bring traditional banking and crypto infrastructure, giving its client base access to emerging financial instruments with regulatory guardrails. And so this is fantastic. Obviously, it's one more. You're going to see so many more banks, by the way. In the United States, given that the war on crypto is over, you're going to see tons of banks. Every bank under the sun, including the largest ones out there, are going to be embracing stablecoins. As long as RLUSD continues to be a winner, and mind you, it's a new coin. It was launched in December of 2024. But as long as it continues to get traction here, expect it to be adopted by the largest banks out there. And again, this is great for XRP itself. XRP is required for any transaction that occurs specifically on the XRP ledger. Yet some people just do not get it. They do not get it. Look at this. Ripple's legal saga is over. But with its stablecoin pivot, where does XRP go? Oh yes, where will it go indeed? And I gotta say, before I even read any of this, and I actually printed this bad boy up, I killed some trees for this. Before I even read just a few select portions of this, I just got to ask, why don't these douchebags ever hold Bitcoin to the same standard? Because you'll see as we go through this, they're like, is XRP? So before the narrative was XRP is a zombie chain, it's dead. Do you remember this headline from March 28th of March 28th, 2024, last year? Forbes says XRP has no purpose, calls XRPL a ghost chain. So that was the narrative back then. And that Forbes piece was written by the same guy, Steve Ehrlich, who now he's writing for Unchained here. He said that it's a ghost chain, a zombie chain. The narrative then was, well, XRP, it's alive, and that, you know, some people are investing, they're buying and selling. It's speculative, but it's a dead chain. It's not doing anything. Do you remember that? I covered that at the time and mocked it. It was hilarious. I enjoyed mocking it. That's the same guy. That's what we're working. So what's the narrative now? Now the narrative is, well, XRP does some stuff, but it's questionable if it's going to be able to continue doing stuff. And the utility, there's not that much of it. Whoa. So now you're acknowledging there's utility when previously it was a ghost chain, it was dead? It's just, this is so disingenuous. These people with XRP derangement syndrome, they're just completely insufferable. And so my question here is, are you ever going to hold Bitcoin to the same standard, your beloved Bitcoin? Do you ever question, well, is the future for Bitcoin bright? I mean, what's it even used for? Is it being used to combat Swift? Is it being used? There's no smart contract functionality on Bitcoin, and smart contracts function. So you can see all these arguments they make as to why XRP, it's questionable. Is it going to really last? None of it applies to their beloved Bitcoin. How hypocritical is this shit? It's completely ridiculous. XRP is one of the most useful and adopted cryptocurrencies on the planet. At some point, these pieces of human debris, they're going to have to look in the mirror and be like, what did I actually get wrong? Can you imagine another 10 years of this type of adoption? Look at what's been happening since the election and all the publicly traded companies jumping on board, holding XRP as a treasury reserve asset, multiple public companies doing that. But this guy must know better than them, right? And by the way, at least a couple of those publicly traded companies specifically are using XRP internally in payment flows. Internally, in their business models, they have implemented XRP itself. So it's not just that they're holding it as a treasury reserve, but hey, limited usefulness, right, of XRP, right? Who wants a decentralized cryptocurrency when you could have a stable coin? Do you even need decentralized cryptocurrencies if there's stable coins? But of course, they're talking about how stable coins, including RLUSD, threaten XRP, but they never say it threatens Bitcoin. And they shouldn't, because it doesn't. And they're different animals. These are different things. This guy, I don't know how he could type this and publish it, attach his name to it, and not feel ridiculously embarrassed. How could he not feel tremendous shame and embarrassment attaching his name to this tripe? It's just ridiculous. Look at this. And so I'm going to try and scroll down as I read the printed version here, because I used a highlighter on my version here. So take a look at this. He wrote, with Ripple seeming to pivot more towards stablecoins, a strong argument can be made that if RLUSD actually does grow, it can cannibalize whatever potential XRP demand Ripple has been trying to drum up for years. See, this is the stupidest damn thing. That's the same type of argument that, before RLUSD existed, that's the same type of thing people are saying. Well, what do you need XRP for if stablecoins exist? And it's what I was just saying a second ago. There are different use cases for different types of things. There are going to be jurisdiction limitations, geopolitical reasons that people wouldn't use a coin that's backed by the dollar, for example. There will always be those types of things. I don't think North Korea is going to pick up RLUSD anytime soon, do you? I'm just saying, there's all sorts of other nations. I'm just saying. But then you have XRP, which is decentralized. There's no counterparty risk, and it's truly jurisdictionless. So if you just want something that works and it's one of the most liquid cryptocurrencies on the entire damn planet, you can just use it. It's widely available on basically every exchange that exists now. It's ubiquitous with crypto at this point. It just is. It just won. And the creators of XRP were just trying to build a better version of Bitcoin. That was it. And of course, this guy, he's holding it to a completely different standard than he holds Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't have to do anything. It just has to exist and store value, and there you go. I guess that's fine. But this is ridiculous. And he never acknowledges that XRP is required for the transaction. So as RLUSD grows, it increases the demand for XRP. It doesn't decrease it, you dipshit. How does he not know this? How is he not tremendously embarrassed? It doesn't make sense. This does not make sense. I'm just telling you. Let me scroll a little bit lower here. This really grinds my gears. Oh, and here's where he acknowledges that stupid-ass article I mentioned. He says, in March 2024, I wrote a story in Forbes called The Rise of Crypto's Billion-Dollar Zombies. And so I already mentioned that he talked about it. It's the stupidest. It's a dead coin. Ooh, how'd that age? It's only been a little over a year. How'd that age? Now, XRP, it jumped up dramatically in price because the markets recognize the actual value of XRP, and that's going to continue to happen. You've seen the utility increase, tokenization of U.S. treasuries, which he doesn't even acknowledge in this article. He pretends it doesn't even happen. The tokenization of money market funds on the XRP ledger doesn't even bother to mention that because it destroys his narrative. He doesn't want the truth. He wants to drive a narrative that is not in line with reality. That's what this guy wants to do. That's what he is doing. Now, it gets even more embarrassing for him. And I critiqued him for this at the time, and he still hasn't learned. So let's just keep laughing at him because this is stupid, and it's worth laughing at this. He's referencing his Forbes article from last year. He says, I wrote, and this is a quote from his article from last year, in terms of global money flows, not much is going on at Ripple Labs today, and few expect it to ever disrupt the Belgian banking cooperative known as SWIFT, which facilitates $5 trillion in interbank transfers every day. Despite failing at its primary mission, Ripple's blockchain, a ledger of XRP transactions, continues to hum along. So we got to pause there to note that he's calling the XRP ledger Ripple's blockchain, even though the XRP ledger existed before Ripple, the company, existed, making that impossible. But he doesn't care about facts. He doesn't care about reality. He wants to drive a narrative. It's all Ripple. It's the same thing. It's one big piece of junk, blah, 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 blah. And he doesn't care who he misleads in the process. It's stupid, and he has to know better. How could he not know better? He says it's largely useless, but the XRP token still supports a market value of $36 billion, making it the sixth most valuable cryptocurrency. Yeah, how'd that age? $36 billion, and then jumped up to 100 and whatever billion it is today. How'd that work out for you? Not very well? Then stop saying stupid shit, and maybe you won't keep embarrassing yourself. This is so ridiculous. He says it's largely useless. Even if you were just looking at what Ripple was doing with it, that utility has done nothing but increase. Utilizing it as a bridge currency? This guy, total cluelessness. The truth is, it's a blend of cluelessness, but also there are certain things that he knows that it's clear he twists, and he omits certain things to drive a false narrative. So it's a mix of all of that, actually. It's just disgusting. Now, this is the part that's really funny that I was referencing a second ago. Check this out. This is so funny. How is this? I mocked it so severely at the time, and I have to again. This is so funny. He says, that language, referencing what I just shared with you, he says, that language, sorry, folks, I'm still getting over my sickness here. It says, that language was obviously harsh. But in the story, I pointed out that the XRP ledger only earned $583,000 in fees in 2023, despite having a market capitalization of $36 billion at the time. To me, and then he writes at the end of that, to me, these findings meant that XRP was primarily seen as a meme coin and little else. Folks, that's correct. The fact that XRP transactions are so cheap that they're almost free, which means that there were almost no fees paid on the XRP ledger. The fact that XRP is so cheap, that means there's something wrong. There's not even fees being collected, EREs. That's right. So you can imagine, what if, God forbid, this were actually free? If it were 100% free, there are zero fees collected. Zero fees collected on the XRP ledger. It's free to move XRP around. This is terrible. Do you see how stupid this is? And what's the most hilarious part is that he says fees collected as if they're going somewhere. Nobody's collecting fees, you idiot stick. Fees are burnt. Fees are charged to prevent DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service attacks, because it gets really costly really fast if you're going to try in any meaningful way hamper the transactions on the XRP ledger. It's going to get really expensive for you. Now, for people who are acting in good faith, transactions are so cheap that they might as well be free. That's why you pay almost nothing, and that's why it was only $583,000. And it's not collected, you idiot. It's not collected. It doesn't go anywhere. And he's spinning this as if it's a bad thing. And he's talking about price to sales ratios. You dipshit. You actual moron. How do you not know this? How do you not know this? Now that's a thing where I think he legitimately doesn't. He may not. Maybe he's used to it being good and healthy in his eyes for Bitcoin miners to collect these fees. It's great, secure the network, blah 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 blah. That's not how this works. This is not how it works, you little idiot. No no no. Oh, it's just completely. It's so funny though. At least it's very funny. And then he wrote here, not much is happening on the XRP ledger that would justify an increase in price. Okay, I already talked about a bunch of the stuff that's been happening since the election, so I don't need to repeat it all. But he stated that, this is a new article, and he just stated that, having the benefit of looking at what's happened since the election, all the publicly traded companies utilizing XRP, not just as a Treasury Reserve asset, but for actual purposes, including in their actual business flows, all of this, you can look at all the tokenization of assets, like I cited, U.S. Treasuries on the XRP ledger, so on and so forth. And it's just completely absurd and just completely laughable here. So you see that, and then you can look at this headline, and I covered this at the time from April 23rd this year. Tukurium CEO says we chose XRP because it's the coin with the most utility and true use cases. Okay, one of these guys is right and one of them is wrong. Which one do you think it is that's right? Is it this idiot stick who said that XRP Ledger was dead and then disastrously proven wrong, but now he acknowledges a little bit of utility? Or is it the guy here, the CEO of this company, who says XRP has the most utility and true use cases? And he does cite tokenization as a key part of that. Who do you think's right here? And he says not much is happening on the XRP Ledger. How can you type that with a straight face? And then how do you not feel great shame sharing this? You're ruining your family name. Like, it's ridiculous. Just saying. And then he wrote here, it also appears that the XRP Ledger has struggled to bring on native smart contracts. Okay, why does every coin have to do everything that could possibly be done in the blockchain space? Because that's effectively the mindset you'd have to have in order to say something so stupid. Smart contracts intentionally were not implemented on the XRP Ledger back in the day, because at the time where technology was, you would have had to give up something in order to do that in terms of what makes XRP great for payments. Its speed and the fact that each transaction is almost free. Now, there are ways around that, as have been proven technologically since then, but when they started talking about this in 2011, folks, okay, in the year 2011. So, it is the case that XRP Ledger might have smart contract functionality in the future. It never has to have it to be wildly successful. That's the truth. Why are we bringing it up like the XRP Ledger has to just be this, the Swiss Army knife of everything? It does all things for all people. That's a stupid argument. It doesn't ever have to do that, and it's still wildly successful because it's great at payments. It does what Bitcoin can't. How about that? Even that's enough. If people were just using it for the intended use case that Satoshi Nakamoto had for Bitcoin, just being good for payments, peer-to-peer cash system, even that would be enough. And XRP does that. It actually can do that. Even that would be enough here. This is ridiculous. Struggled to bring on native smart contracts. It's not. There's no struggle here. It's that there are proposals that can be set forth, and then validators vote to approve or not approve. That's it. That's a decentralized ecosystem. What do you mean struggled to bring on native smart contracts? This is what the participants in the ecosystem want. And it can change, but quit with this stupid ass narrative. I just hate this crap. I'm glad I got this platform so I can rip this crap to shreds. I'll do one more little comment here. It's not worth reading this whole article here. I think it was this one. It says, what do you say here? Let's see what this idiot said here. In addition, XRP holders need to also wonder how the launch of Ripple Labs stablecoin RLUSD will impact demand for the token. Well, in hindsight, I guess I actually talked about that enough already. It's good for XRP. It's very good for XRP. And if you're talking about XRP as a bridge currency, XRP is used as the bridge currency in Ripple payments everywhere except for corridors that touch the United States because of regulatory problems. That's it. That's the answer. So the more the stablecoin gets adopted on the XRP ledger, obviously the greater it is for XRP. How does he not get that? And sometimes people want a stablecoin, which is a centralized asset. Sometimes they want a decentralized asset. And there are different risk profiles with each and different uses with each. And that's good. I can't take this guy seriously, but it's fun to make fun of him. It's just so stupid. He's all smug up in his ivory tower here thinking he's saying smart things. I mean, some of the stuff he thinks he's saying is smart. A lot of it, I love to mock it. But then it's just also the omissions. It's just offensive. As somebody that's been following this so closely for the better part of a decade, it's like he looks down on. He has to look down on people. Like we're too stupid to figure out that this is complete and utter garbage, and this article is not only useless, it actually harms people who are just trying to find out the truth of the situation. This entire space is complex enough without bad actors like this guy. It's already hard enough to figure out what's true and real. He is not helping anyone. He is making life worse for people by writing stuff that doesn't have anything to do with what's actually occurring in the real world. And so there we are. You are an idiot, sir. You're an absolute idiot. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.